in the part of Turkana. We have our own county which has billions of money. We have a national government ministry in charge of agriculture. What practical measures have we taken as a country to ensure that we irrigate, we use the water in Lake Turkana to do irrigation so that those people do not die of hunger? You know, in Baringo, we have Lake Baringo, which is a freshwater lake. What practical aspects have we taken to ensure that that freshwater lake is used for purposes of irrigation? So I think even Parliament, we must up our game, because we have several legislations, and as I said, I'm not in the Committee of Agriculture, but the Committee of Agriculture must do an audit of legislations that have been passed since 1963, and those ones that have been passed to ensure that there is full implementation of the same. Yeah.
As I come to General Jared, maybe in terms of legislation and smart agriculture, which we are discussing here at the SK show, what do you want to see in terms of legislation, both on the county government and the national government side? Because even the president and the governor of Mombasa was here yesterday, talked about the collaboration of working together to make smart agriculture work in all counties.
I thank you. This is a miniature chamber. Allow me to digress a bit. And I can see we have Mr. Speaker, sir, and our clerk. Some of us who are in Parliament started debating at a very tender age. And therefore, this is also an incentive to the young people who probably would make it to Parliament someday. So this then gives them a picture, an overview of what Parliament looks like, and the types of transactions that ensue in Parliament. Now, coming to your question, as I said, agriculture is devolved. You know, what the national government ought to be left with is policy. You know, they run the policy, but all the functions under beneath agriculture need to be at the counties, and money needs to follow functions, as is enshrined in our constitution on matters devolution. The travesty is you still have a lot of functions held at the national level, which ought to be at the counties. And as my chairman did say, agriculture is actually done in the counties. It is not done at Kilimo House in Nairobi. And therefore, that is the place where we need to send much of the funds to be able to quickly and effectively carry out matters of agriculture. Now, when our country is different in several respects. There are areas where adequate rainfall is received, and therefore, you know, we talk about the bread basket of the Uasin Gishu, of Trans Nzoia. They have adequate rainfall. On the converse, you have areas that are really struggling to get rainfall. But the few times that they do, one major problem that we have as a nation is lack of reservoir to keep that water when it rains. You realize even Nairobi, for example, when it rains, it is water that flows, creates havoc through flooding on the streets and in homes. It finds its way somewhere, and that is the end of it. In 2-3 days, Nairobi doesn't have water. Yet 2 days ago, they had too much that people were relocating from their homes. So how do we as a nation harness water harvesting, keep it somewhere, and therefore be able to do smart agriculture? Smart agriculture is where we engage micro irrigation, using the water that is available to maximize on food production. So that is an area where in our pieces of legislation, which must also be in tandem with the counties, can help do that. We have, you know, terracing farming and contour farming in areas that are rugged in nature, whereby if you do so, then issues of soil erosion will be reduced. You also maximize on available water for food production. So what happens at the counties should be reflective of what happens at the national stage, so that there is proper coordination without one arm of government, or rather one level of government, seemed to either be overreaching on its mandate or is pulling us behind So the counties must, through Council of Governors, align their responsibilities with the policies that are emanating from the national stage, which is mandated to do policies. Now, Parliament, I want to repeat, should always give more monies to the agriculture sector. Yes, we do very well on education, we do very well on health, now that we have SHA, and SHA is dependent both on contributions from you and I, and that which comes from the exchequer to handle chronic and emergency illnesses. But then we need to pay more credence to matters of agriculture, put more monies, address emerging issues around agriculture, because for the longest it has been the backbone of our nation, and the biggest foreign earner has been through agriculture. You remember a few days when President Ruto came into office, we had a big problem with our dollar. So on two fronts, the dollar rate was higher, and number two, we could not access adequate dollar to do importation of essential items. So agriculture is one of the best avenues upon which we can receive enough monies and enough dollars to now do the international trade.
Maybe come to the chair through speaker. Maybe there's the coffee bill. Maybe talk to us. What does it seek to achieve? And there are some of the changes that were announced by the president. Is it this part of the gains that the 13th Parliament has been doing?
Thank you very much. The coffee bill, which is an amendment of the existing Coffee Act, we had a coffee bill which we passed as a House. It was also passed by the Senate, and instead of being able to be ascended into law, there are issues that came about which needs to be sorted out. And one of them is on the management of the money to the farmer. When you look at the way the coffee sector is structured, coffee is produced on the farm, picked by the farmer, and taken to the factory, sorted, graded, and then released for pulping or processing. And then the coffee follows a long processing chain where we get the parchment after fermentation, of course, the following, after 1 or 2 days, then it's put on the net to dry, and then it is now milled again to get the green bean. Green bean is the one that is traded on. That is the coffee that you find in the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, and it is the coffee that can be exported out of this country. So along the way, there are cost implications. And then when it comes to the farmer, the government is focusing a lot more on the benefits to the coffee grower. And the government is looking for ways and means of ensuring that the grower is guaranteed a certain amount of money when they deliver their coffee out to the factory. And there is a proposal that once the farmers have delivered coffee to a factory, during the coffee production season, they should be able to get about 40 shillings per kilo per month in view of the amount delivered within that month, the sharing delivered within that month. That's one of the proposals that is coming in. The other proposal is on the way that coffee is supposed to be paid. We realize that the collapse of the coffee cooperatives in the past was caused by mismanagement of the factories, a lot of acquisition of loans that the farmers are not say on, and therefore of abandoning the factory, and at the end of the day reducing the amount of money or revenue that goes to the farmer. The government is clearly coming up with a mechanism within this particular arrangement to ensure that the coffee farmers can get more money than probably anybody else within the value chain. The proposal is that we should not spend more than 20% of the value of coffee within the process. More than 20%, no. The proposal is that we should, from the pulping at the coffee factory level, from going through the milling of the coffee into parchment, the marketing through the coffee exchange or through the auction, all the way and back. Once we sell at the auction, the money that is paid by the brokers who actually arrange for this selling should at least 20% of it, 80% of it reach the farmer. But you realize that in some certain factories, the farmers receive 60 or 50%. And that is something that the government is working on seriously through now this particular legislation to iron out. The other issue that is coming up, and people are being misled on what is called direct settlement system. The direct settlement system, and I would like to be very clear here to the Kenyans, the direct settlement system is a system that basically looks at how much has coffee been sold, how much has already been accrued as a cost along the way, and what is available to the farmer. So in that particular case, if you look at the case of tea is basically operating under direct settlement system because the farmer is paid per the amount of tea that they deliver to the tea weighing shed every month. Even with coffee, because you have 2 seasons of coffee production or coffee delivery to the factory, the farmer should be able to be paid a certain amount of money upon delivery. And the proposal is that at least the farmer should get 40 shillings per kilo. If in January I deliver 50 kilos, I should have 40 times 50, which is 1,000 shillings. If I deliver 2,000 kilos, that is the way we should look at it. Then, when the coffee is finally sold, then all the added costs they are obtaining, or rather the resultant cost in the process, are deducted, and the farmer is directly paid. What is happening right now? The factory is the one that is recognized by the system, and therefore the factory is paid directly. I want to dispel the rumor and the misinformation that the use of direct settlement system is a government mechanism to identify how much goes to the farmer so that they can be taxed in view of what is being referred to as the turnover tax. It is possible for the government right now to take turnover tax. There is nothing that prevents the government from taking turnover tax, because it is possible to know how much has coffee been sold, how much has been accrued along the way, what is the difference. What the government is trying to do is to make sure that instead of the money going to the factory, this system should be improved to a certain extent that the cost implications at the factory level are also factored, such that now when coffee is sold, and we know the conversion ratio. The conversion ratio is 1 kilogram of green beans is equivalent to 6 kilograms of cherry. So if you use the conversion ratio, the farmers can actually calculate how much money they are likely to get at the end of the day, and they get that. So that is what the law is coming up to do. It's an amendment of an existing act that is going to be to change some of those circumstances and make sure that coffee is as good and lucrative and appreciated by Kenyans as tea.
Thank you so much, Chair. And through our speaker, I now want to move to the some of our guests who are here to ask some few questions.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sydney, and I have 3 questions. And number 1 is, how is Parliament handling the issue of middlemen who exploits farmers? And the second question is, how is Parliament ensuring timely payment to farmers who supply their produce to the government agencies? And the last question is, right now we see many Gen Zs or the youths are on social media, technology and sports. We see a few of them, they are being involved in farming sector. So what policies are in place to make farming more attractive to the youths? Thank you.
Through the speaker, I think I'll give the chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you so much for those very, let me say, very good questions. The first one is how has Parliament taken care of the middlemen who are handling the produce of the farmers? If you look at the, let me say, the classical example that I can give that has taken care of the middlemen is actually the, let me talk about the grain management, the cereals. When the government set up the entire National Cereals and Produce Bond System, The National Cereals and Produce Board does two things. Number one, it absorbs the grain from the production areas and then manages the grain distribution across the country into the consumption areas. That is why you find the NCPB stores in northeastern Kenya where they don't produce any grains, and in coast and other areas. So one of the ways is to make sure that maize that farmers can deliver directly to National Cereals and Produce Board. So they have, in other words, gotten rid of all the middlemen in that particular industry. Let me give you a very specific and small example that is very applicable in this particular respect. The government came up with a system of selling banana plants, banana batches, bananas, and assisted the farmers of banana to form an association. And then through the association, the government advised that do not sell at the farm level, sell at the aggregation center level. Then the government created aggregation centers. And this is the development that is coming up with the modern markets development. So when farmers take their bananas from the farm to the aggregation center, and this is a live experience I've seen, banana prices improved from 150 shillings per bunch at the farm level to 600 shillings per bunch. So that's a profit of 450 shillings at once. Now, when you look at other products, when they are carried to directly to the aggregation centers, one of the ways that the government is assisting is establishment or investment in aggregation centers. As we speak, I'm one of those who is doing that in my locality. We are now putting up 3 aggregation centers. We are grain producers, so we'll take all the grains to the market, to the aggregation center. All the farmers will take grains to the aggregation center. The aggregation center will engage with the off-takers, the buyers. So the farmers will basically have their grains at the aggregation center, and then they will be paid the amount of money the grain is costing all over. After 2 to 3 months of aggregation, the grain is sold, the farmers get the bonus, they benefit. The other thing that is significant, that is important for you, is the law that we did in the last parliament. We did a law called Warehouse Receipting System. The Warehouse Receipting System set up warehouses across the country. These warehouses are inspected and certified and therefore registered as warehouses. When farmers produce, if they are not under a lot of stress to sell immediately, then they take to the warehouse, then they have a receipt. That receipt can be used as a collateral. You can go to a bank and borrow money because you have a goods stored in a warehouse and it is not. You have avoided the middleman. Now the second issue is ensuring timely payment by suppliers. The produce that goes through suppliers need to be managed. And that is why the government has a system of doing what is called promotion, marketing, and regulation. If you look at the various sectors that are organized, like the coffee, the tea, the sugarcane, there is a board. This board does regulation. And regulation has got to do with pre-production, production, marketing, and even post-production. It looks at the entire chain. So within the chain, the actors within the chain are identified, and the role of the actors is very well specified, and these actors are cautioned to basically deal out their issues in record time. So through the organization, and when you come to other crops which are not having specific boards, we have what we call the Agriculture and Food Authority, also overseeing that. That is one of the ways of ensuring that there is timely payment. The payment to the farmers must not exceed a certain time, and this is monitored and therefore enforced by the government. And that is why when you see farmers of a certain crop complaining, the government comes in, even cushions for the farmers from any of those delays. Now the final one was on engagement of the youth. What policies are there? Number one, moving towards modernization. What the youth of this country do not like, and youth across the world, is labor. They don't like getting tired. They don't like drudgery in agriculture. They don't like to use the wool in order to produce. They would like to use a tractor. So if we mechanize, then the youth will be interested. If you are doing irrigation on a farm, they would like to use the pump, the hand-driven pump. They would like to use a machine. Running through the machine is easy. So mechanization is one of the ways of interesting youth. The second issue is through the digitization. The government is moving strongly to digitize systems within the agricultural sector to ensure that it is possible for us in a very small locality somewhere in Nyando to discover the prices of rice in Malaysia, where you are sitting there in your computer. You can be able to know, oh, this is the price in Malaysia, this is the price in Mombasa, this is the price here. If I have to advise my farmers to get the best price, they could take their produce here. But then you have to look at the transport costs and other added costs along the way. Are there any levies, fees, and also taxes to be paid along the way, and so on? So one of the three ways I've mentioned is mechanization. The second one is ICT, and the third one is basically reorganizing agriculture. And this is something that we're emphasizing on a lot, reorganizing our agriculture to be more sensitive to the needs of the youth of today. I have seen several farms being run by youth, like poultry production farms, dairy production farms. The youth are running them very well. And horticulture, some of them are engaging directly in production of horticulture. And because the value of the produce is already declared and determined. When they know exactly what I'll get when I engage into this particular process, then the youth could be interested in agriculture. So those are some of the things that the government is doing, and probably my colleagues.
And we can have Honorable Kiblagat to handle some of the questions.
Maybe, thank you, Chair. I think you have elaborated on that question very well. Maybe just to add on making youth to be interested in farming. As you know very well, when you are engaging in any activity that requires a business, there are factors of production that are well elaborated. We have the issue of land, we have the issue of capital, and we have the issue of labor. In terms of capital, there is availability of credit within our agricultural sector, especially our agricultural bank, that is the AFC, Agricultural Finance Corporation. We, government, through AFC, and World Bank are bumped in around 2 billion, specifically credit to the youths. And if you look at the requirement for the youth to be able to access that credit, first of all, there is the age limit in terms of making sure that those who can access that credit are below 35 years. The second thing is that the collateral that are required by the commercial banks, they are not there. You don't require to produce a title and all the other things that you are usually told to produce. And lastly is that it is given at low interest rate. At low interest, so that you are, instead of when you look at the bank, you are currently getting at between 21 and 19%, 18% thereabout. This one, I think it's giving at 3%. So we would like to encourage the youths to be able to access that facility, because last year when we were looking at that facility, the youth were not accessing so much, because maybe because of lack of information, or maybe because of lack of interest. The other bit is that the government also has there's a program in which it is currently doing for entrepreneurs, for the youth to be entrepreneurs. And around 50,000 is available to every youth to be able to access, so that they can become entrepreneurs. Currently, through cooperative, Ministry of Cooperative, there is an ongoing support to the youths. There's around 70 youths per ward. And if you look at the number, 70 youths times 1,400 and 450 thereabout times 70. So that's around 100,000 of youths to be facilitated to get. In fact, that one is not a credit. It is a token to be able to start business. Around 50,000 a token to be able to start business. And the kind of business a youth can be able to start immediately with that money, you can do beekeeping, you can do all manner of things that you can be able to use. So maybe what we are telling our youths is be able to engage the government, be able to know all this information, and be able to get credit. What I know, any youth who requires capital, the government will be able to assist them to get enough capital to be able to start their business. Thank you.
Okay, through the speaker again, maybe Honorable Timothy, you can tell us what do you have for the youth, especially now that the matters to do with youth have come up.
Thank you. I think that was a very profound question by the young man. This week I was in the University of Eldoret. I met the Vice Chancellor, and one of the shocking things he told me is that they are about to close down the Department of Agriculture at the University of Eldoret, for the reason that that young people are not interested to study agriculture. So I think it's a two-way question. They also must show some interest in agriculture. Actually, even if you ask these leaders, if we go around schools, you ask students in high school and at the lower level, who wants to be a doctor, everyone raise their hand. Who wants to be a lawyer, who wants to be a farmer, they will laugh, yeah, because we have not engineered them to show them that farming is good, farming is profitable, farming is a business. You can make a living out of farming. So I think that one of the issues is to engineer and re-engineer the minds of young people to have passion in agriculture. Number two, as a government, we must be deliberate and intentional in assisting young people, one, access credit, and number two, even get tax reliefs, so that if a young person has a business and the business is doing so well, then we can have tax exemptions on certain areas that can assist young people to get profit fully without paying any tax to a certain extent. Up to a certain extent, they are exempted from taxation. I think that will act as an incentive to these young people to ensure that they engage in farming. I am not very sure if there is a standing legislation on that particular issue, but it would interest me to have a standalone legislation on that focuses on young people to engage in farming activities, so that we have a specific legal framework that provides that a young person below the age of 35, if you engage in agriculture substantively, you can be assisted in a manner that will inspire other young people to engage in agriculture.
Honorable Jared, what can we do in terms of what Honorable Timothy has mentioned?
I thank you very much. Firstly, we have to recognize that the youth is the productive lot of our society. They still have the energy, they have the enthusiasm, and they have what it takes to get involved on matters of a nation, particularly now that we are talking about agriculture. Growing up as young people, our parents could wake us up too early in the morning to go to the farm and do manual labor. That is since waning because we have a society that does not really respect very much labor-intensive activities. But we need to get there as a nation because in the absence of perpetuating our agricultural overview, then two things are likely to happen. Number one, we will be reliant more on importation of food items from outside, and therefore creating an imbalances in our trade systems. And number two, as a country, therefore, if you have to surrender all your needs to a different nation, then it compromises your sovereignty as a country. And therefore, we still have to step back, reflect, and retool as a nation so that we can have our own production within the youth sector. Now, the youth, as has been alluded to, are running away from these labor-intensive exercises. But again, we have mechanized systems from plowing, which you do agriculture, from putting seeds on the ground, which you can still use machinery, from harvesting, even including wheat, where we have combined harvesters. We even also have machines that help, break corn, maize, and put it into bags. So we are running away from that manual labor and engaging more on machinery. The beauty of it, again, is that it is constitutional, that even when certain tenders are to be carried out, the chairman talked about building aggregation centers, coming up with building water pans, building boreholes. And there is a rule that 30% of those tenders must go to the youth. So that then boosts the economy of youth to be able to engage further on other agricultural activities. But the youth can never be ignored when it comes to agricultural sector. They play a very important role. The future belongs to them. The old folks have no more energy to do manual labor and to produce food, but then the youth must stand into the gap to bridge that gap so that our country can have ample food to feed itself and for exports also to attain a balanced trade. Thank you.
Through our speaker again, we are live on our parliamentary social medias, Facebook and other social media sites. And so I have another question, and I think I'll begin with the Honorable Jared. There's a viewer is asking, most of the horticultural products are perishable, and most farmers are applying mechanisms to improve production and to improve quality. What is the Parliament doing to ensure that they set up these factories, reduce post-harvest wastage?
A lot of interventions have been done on that front. Number one is the aggregation centers, which are fitted with refrigeration, so that as harvest happens, the food is taken to these centers, and those that cannot access quick markets have an enabling environment for storage. So the refrigeration has played an important role to keep our food, to prevent the post-harvest losses. Number two, even the vehicles that or vessels that do transportation are also fitted with AC systems. So it helps cool the food, keep it fresh until it ends to to its destination. But we also acknowledge, particularly on horticultural sector, the flower sector particularly, where flour has to be moved from Kenya to Europe within a very short period of time, lest you lose the entire batch. So you get to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, for example, and Kenya Airways that carries cargo would go and carry beef at the expense of flowers, just because beef fetches more when they ferry these products across the globe. And therefore, there is a big opportunity within the aviation industry to put more vessels to carry our stuff from Kenya to the international market. Because again, if you move flowers to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, for example, and you have no means of taking it abroad, and it has a very short lifespan, you can see the amount of losses that our country would go through. So our government, I know, has done a lot of bailouts to Kenya Airways. Last year they posted 527 million profit. This year they have posted a huge loss to the tune of 2.2 billion. So you don't really understand what happened so fast within a span of 1 year. But there is need for the government to put more resources in restocking our aviation industry, so that we also minimize post-harvest losses on products that have to leave our country, because that is the only way that we are going to get dollars to be able to now do additional trade across the global markets.
Okay, maybe it is another question from one of our viewers around here. Is asking, since you did allude that the national government is still holding some of the functions that are meant to be in the counties, the viewers are asking, why are you still approving some of the unconstitutional proposals? Maybe I'll give this to the chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to revisit what the Honorable Okello said. Jared told us that most of the money should go to the counties. Let me speak to the reality of the agricultural sector, because I understand it very well, and these two gentlemen sat with me in the committee. The functions of the county are specified under the Devolution Act, and I think it's Article 118 of the Constitution, as it were. Now, the money that goes to the county is supposed to be 15% of the revenue that is collected, determined and audited, and the revenue of a previous year. And if you look at the statistics, you look at the figures, because figures are very specific and outright, there has never been 15%. It's always 20, 24% and so on. When does it become more than 20%? This is because, if you look at the agricultural sector as it were, all the projects that are donor funded have a separate implementation structure that avoids the overrun by the national government. In other words, what we have at the national level is a coordination mechanism, but the implementation itself occurs at the county. This is money, we have said several times, that is not under our purview as a committee, we cannot oversight, because the arrangement is between the donor, the governor, the donor, the office of the accounting officer, the PS or agriculture or livestock, and the county governor. So that money flows that way. So this is additional resources to the county. So the assumption is that a lot of money is kept at the headquarters. No, that's not the issue. And why is that arrangement? The constitution was not very clear on the international relations aspect, where a county can engage directly with the international community. And I'll tell you the reason. One of the reasons is, when it comes to international trading systems, there is a recognition of a competent authority who will give the view, or rather give a decree on the quality, the safety, and the usability of a product that leaves this country, especially if it is going to be consumed by human beings. We must adhere to the internationally established protocols, which are Codex Alimentarius, which basically are devolved to the country level and therefore applied at that particular level. So counties cannot engage in international trade because they have no competent authority. The only competent authority is stationed at the national level, and there is only one. It must be known and launched in the international trading systems. This is the competent authority when it comes to veterinary services, veterinary products. Veterinary products are like meat, the milk, and so anything that is meat related. Anything that is crop related, there is a competent authority that basically assures the international community that you can consume this particular product from Kenya, because I have said, as Dr. Mutunga, I'm the head of that particular institution. So because there is no placement of competent authorities at the county level, they are not enabled, they are disabled from participating in international trade. Just like it is a fact, when donors realize that we have devolved our system, and then they cannot go directly to engage with the counties because that mechanism is supposed to be at the national level, because it's country to country. Donors are either bilateral or multilateral, either country-to-country relationship or many countries to one country, or maybe through an institution like the World Bank or IMF and others. Therefore, they deal with the national level for purposes of coordination and monitoring and evaluation, but then the county government does the implementation. So a lot of resources actually at the county, yes, even as at now. Now, the other issue that probably we may need to consider, the question was, why does probably the head of state assent to legislations that touch on national and county, while we know that they are supposed to be county? Now, because of that particular predicament, if we may say a loophole or a lacuna in the constitution, it did not give counties direct, based on the international relations attribute, then what has been created at the national level is an intergovernmental coordination unit, whereby county governments, through their council of governors, engage national government through their formation. So there is that relationship, which it's an informal kind of, but is recognized by the county legislation, such that decisions made at this particular coordination unit are actually binding. And therefore, because it is not possible for international community to work directly with the counties, then we find that there must be an arrangement at the national level for the country to country to link, and then money goes to the country. So I want to be of the fact that, and without any fear of contradiction, the money that is held at the national level does research, which is universal. The research products are basically universal. It does capacity building. Capacity building, because we talk about technology transfer. So all the technologies, innovations, and management practices coming from other countries pass through a certain hub within a country. That is the point at which it cannot be adapted for the country use and then transmitted to the counties for use. Capacity building is necessary. When it comes to regulation, then counties cannot have their regulatory mechanism for a product that is also happening in many other counties. You realize the issue of vaccination. Let me revisit that briefly as a good example. The national government had to come in and enforce vaccination across several counties. Why? Because County X will vaccinate against foot and mouth disease. County Y will not vaccinate against foot and mouth disease. Disease knows no boundary. So when there is a disease in this County Y, it will basically spread back to County X. And therefore, there is need for us to have a ring vaccination and a complete vaccination of whatever is within the ring to be able to clear that area as disease-free. That is why the national government had to come in. So, in most cases, national government is involved in regulation, international trade, promotion, crop development or product development, and therefore research, and not really everything that is happens in agriculture.
Maybe, Honorable David, maybe as you touch on that, and also you can touch on the roles of Parliament and what do you have here for the people of Mombasa? The roles of Parliament in terms of legislation and anything to add about that.
Okay, maybe before I go to the role of Parliament, I just want to just to support what the chair has said in terms of the counties and what they play in agriculture. It's very important that it's a juicy topic, and that is why whenever governors are complaining, you will rarely see them complaining about the evolution of agriculture. I think one of the problems why they are not complaining is that they don't get direct benefit in terms of controlling, because the benefits goes to the farmer. Second thing, you will realize that food security is actually a national issue. It is the work of national government to ensure that there is a food security in the country, and that one is not devolved. And given that food security is a national security issue, it is incumbent upon the national government, working closely with the farmers at the county level, to ensure that they monitor production indicators of those crops that ensures there is food security. One of the most stable food crop that ensures food security is maize. And it is the work of government to ensure that within the cereals and within the monitoring indicators, we have enough maize to be able to last to last a season. Because you all understand, and you have been in Kenya, when there is the price of unga escalates, nobody will say that the governor of Uasin Gishu or the governor of Trans Nzoia did not produce enough maize, hence they are going to do demonstration at Eldoret or to do demonstration at Kitale. They will actually focus on the man of the moment, that is the president himself and the government and the national government, because that is our duty. So there is no way you can actually delink the national government from making sure that agriculture works, because they need to monitor how the food is. They need to see when to import and when not to import, so that to ensure that food security. And the subtotal is that the funny part of agriculture, actually they grow food. They don't grow anything else apart from cotton, which goes to textile. The rest of the things are just eaten. From coffee, from tea, from maize, from wheat, from rice. So the national government plays a very critical role. Secondly, I think counties need to make sure that they embrace agriculture. Let them not become like the way Honorable Timothy was saying, our youths are not embracing agriculture. I think governors should be told to embrace agriculture and take it as their function, and make sure at least their farmers are producing at a cost-effective manner, and the arable land that is available they provide the infrastructure that is required for the farmers at the county level to be able to produce. And if you see what has happened, because it's a bit sad, we are with our chairman, we have noted that the agricultural extension services, which is the mandate of county government, they have left it. There are no extension officers. You know, initially when it was being run by national government, you could see extension officers, what we call agricultural officers, coming to a shamba and telling you, you are supposed to do a terrace here. They come and take the soil sample, they go and measure to tell you which fertilizer you are supposed to put. There are so many activities that the county have left for good reasons, because they don't want to spend. And within the provision of the 15%, the money they have been given, they are supposed to make sure that they use that to make sure that agriculture works. And if you look at the total setup of our budget of around 69%, or of around 69 billion, and about 49 or 48 billion comes from the donors, all that money within the conditional allocation that we pass, all of them go to the counties. So it is actually the work of counties to ensure that all the services that are required, the veterinary services are working, the agricultural extension services are working, all the systems are working, the irrigation systems are working, so that they can be able to produce. Let them not focus so much on the wet areas, like fighting with national government on the issue of which are county roads, which are Kera roads, what they need to get from the RMLF levy, fighting with the national government on CDF, things that are not supposed to be there. Let them actually focus on, and I can tell you, if you focus on agriculture, governor will not even get time to come to Nairobi to start complaining, to follow RMLF and CDF issues and things like that. So what I just want to say is that agriculture is devolved. They are not complaining, but they are also not putting the resources that are required for services within the counties that touches on agriculture to be able to work.
Thank you so much. Through our speaker, I would also want to continue appreciating our learners who are today our speaker and the clerk. And this being a mock chamber, I also want to give an opportunity to one of the ASK show officials to ask a question, and then we'll proceed as we end up. Okay.
Let me say something on one, Francis, is that one, we have a very progressive constitution in Kenya, and you must give Caesar what belongs to him. Francis, we must fully implement our constitution. In fact, I want to correct the chair and Honorable DK. That's talking about 15%. What our law says is not less than 15%. So the minimum you can give county governments is 15%, but we can give more. Yeah. It is more, of course, yeah, but the minimum is 15. You are talking as if we are supposed to give 15%. But Francis, if we must implement this constitution fully. Our level function Francis, yes. We must fully implement our constitution. If our function is devolved, let that function be fully devolved. There is a provision of transferring our function. If some people feel that a county government should not be given a certain function, let that function be taken back to the national government fully. But once it is devolved, let that function be fully devolved. Even county governments are allowed to borrow loans from the international community, as long as there is approval from the national treasury. So, in my opinion, we should fully implement and transfer functions to the county governments, and we should never hold those functions at the national level.
Through the speaker.
It is very important that we tell Kenyans
yes.
how things are. Using his own words, he says it is possible for a county to borrow money. It should be possible for a county to borrow money from out there with approval from Treasury. What we have is a unitary government with the devolved units. We don't have 48 governments. That's what we have. our understanding is the devolved units are supposed to implement certain aspects of the entire government. So that relationship has been created, and what we have highlighted, what we have explicitly, put before Kenyans here, is that the relationships are very, very clear at the sector level. They know how to do things. And when I say that there has never been 15%, if you look at the figures, because I've looked at these figures many times, it's normally over 20% that goes to the county. So when people complain, they actually focus on the revenue, not the total amount of money that is supposed to be going there. Again, we cannot say this function is explicitly county function. When you have to deal with those other issues up there, which require inter-country relationship, you can't call a county a country. There will be no relation. They will not be recognized.
Thank you.
The lack of recognition puts the county to a stop. You cannot move on. You have to go back to your country, to the national level, to identify who is the right person to do this. So that's what we are saying. So the constitution is very clear.
Thank you. I will seek now the protection from the Mr. Speaker, sir. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And the point of order is actually meant to correct misinformation or disinformation.
Yes.
And my brother, Honorable Wakili Kipchumba, is making some statements. I don't know whether he has just woken up from where. To insinuate that there are some functions somewhere that have not been devolved. I want to tell you, you might not be a member of Agriculture Committee. All the functions of agriculture are being devolved. It's only the only concern we are getting is that after being devolved, the governors are not excited as they are excited in trying to get other functions on roads and things like that that don't touch on them. But what we are telling them is that, and Honorable Kipchumba, you should know this. Our budget, our total budget for like State Department of Crops is 69 million. Out of the 69 billion, out of the 69, the 48 billion or so, the chair will correct me, are the money that are coming from donors through Treasury to be facilitated by the accounting officer, who is the PS Crops, to the counties. And that is why in counties you have things like Flora, you have things like Smart, what's called what? Floca, you have things like Climate Smart. And like for Climate Smart, for example, it's around 34 billion. For the other one you are saying is around 27 billion. For the one that ended just, it was also called Smart something, it was another 16 billion. All that money are going to counties. There is the only thing that, the only cushion that the national government does is coordination, to make sure that counties have gotten their money, they have been able to implement what they have been able to implement as the finance agreement with the donor. And I can tell you, within the Ministry of Agriculture, what is devolved has been devolved. The only thing we are telling counties is that if we need extension officers, let them hire extension officers. If you need vets, let them hire vets. Let agriculture be able to work. If we need irrigation system, let irrigation system work. There is no way you can devolve, those functions have been devolved, then it doesn't work. Then at the end of the day, when there is anger in the country, it is the national government to be blamed. And people have been sleeping on their jobs at the county level. So those are some of the regulations that we need to look at. And if you look at what we are supporting from the national government, we are supporting MDAs that deal with regulations. Yes. If you see the dairy board, the dairy board, for example, deals with regulations for the milk industry, to regulate the milk industry. If you look at the veterinary control board, they deal with, if you use a pesticide control board, all those parastatals that we are dealing at the national level are dealing with issues to do with regulations. But anything that has to be devolved has been devolved. And if Honorable Kipchumba is feeling that there is something in agriculture that has not been devolved, maybe he can declare so that we can devolve tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one small thing I would like to say is that if we allowed all the counties to operate independently, it will be extremely impossible for people in Mombasa to consume potatoes, because potatoes are produced in North Rift and a bit of central Kenya. Every county would put a roadblock to collect levies, fees, and taxes. And the bag of potato here would be extremely expensive. So the national level must coordinate the levies, taxes, and fees paid across the board. And the other issue that is also key for us to remember here is that when a county gets interested in only revenue generating subsectors of agriculture and leave the subsectors that support the farmer to grow better and produce better, then a county is not focused. We are telling them, sort out the extension, sort out the information and management system, don't just focus on meat inspection, because it gives you money.
Okay. And now, through Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll ask a few questions, then I'll give our participants to ask a question as we wind up. One of the questions from our viewers only is asking that what mechanisms is the government taking to ensure the privatization of sugar mills in Western Kenya, such as Nzoia Mumias Sugar, does not disadvantage local farmers, but instead guarantees them to equity participation, fair pricing, and protection from exploitation by private investors. And then on agriculture and livestock again, we have another question. How is the government ensuring livestock farmers, especially in arid and semi-arid land that is ASAL counties, are cautioned against recurrent drought, improved access to water, pasture, veterinary services that we already touched on, and livestock markets? So kindly, maybe I'll ask her to ask the question, then Jared, you'll be the first one.
Thank you so much. My name is Verena Mavola. My question, I appreciate the panel. And my question is, you have talked about sugar, you have talked about maize, you have talked about mainly sugar, maize, yeah? But you have not talked about what is in here in the Coast Province. You have not talked about Bixa, you have not talked about coconut, you have not talked about the bananas, you have not talked about the vegetables, because I'm sure when you came in, you went round, even to Calro, see the cassava which is being produced here in the Coast Province. So mainly, my concern is, are the Coast Province not included in the agricultural sector? That's my question.
Jared.
Thank you. I will handle the sugar question. My colleagues here, including the chair, can handle questions around the coastal products, which are also very key in our revenue generation. Now, when we finished working on the Sugar Act, the government had made efforts to lease, not to privatize, which is partly privatized though, all the government-owned sugar companies. Now, from history and from the records, all the government factories, 4 in number, Chemelil Sugar, Muhoroni Sugar, and Nzoia Sugar, and Sony Sugar, have consistently been making losses. Now, on the other hand, you have privately owned sugar companies that are thriving in business, you know, from Sukari in Ndewa to Butali Sugar in Busia Sugar Company. You have West Kenya Sugar Company. All these companies are consistently making profits when government-owned sugar companies are making losses. Of course, we have to recognize that all the government-owned sugar companies are relying on machinery that has existed since the 50s. So the crushing capacity is compromised. The issues of pilferages are also there, and they are not aligned to the modern ways of crushing, modern ways of planting sugarcane, and all those. So it was in the interest of government to offload the management of these companies and pass them over to the private sector. We do budgets, particularly on agriculture, and each and every year we were appropriating huge sums of money to go to these government-owned sugar companies. I pay workers or to pay farmers, and also to help them renovate this rickety machinery. And each time we were pumping in billions every year to these sugar companies. Remember that they are in operations, they are producing sugar, they are selling sugar, but they have to fall back to the government to bail them out each and every time. So the government actually was running out of patience and decided to flout sugar companies to be leased out to private sector. Now, interestingly, even with the losses that they consistently underwent, the amount of interest that were expressed by the private sector to lease these sugar factories was mind-boggling. Now, these factories that are says, but the private sector was more interested in buying them so that they can professionally run them, just like other private mills are being run. So the government recently signed 30-year leases with the private individuals to run these sugar companies. Now, there were agreements around retention of workers. There were agreements around new registration of these sugar companies, agreements around paying farmers arrears, so that there is continuity. And again, the government, using the laws that we have already established, was going to focus more on putting more arable land to sugarcane production. So in that chain, there were agreements with the private sector that are now running the sugar companies and the national government, including the county governments, because these factories are actually standing on counties, to be able to have a smooth transition and continuity of production, but paying more attention to retention of employees. And even those who for one reason or another will be offloaded, they will be paid their gratuity and no one will be left behind in the transition journey. So a lot has been put by the national government in the sugar industry, and we hope and believe that this will align our sugar sector to the mandate of the agriculture industry. Interestingly, even as these government factories were undergoing losses, there are 4 new factories that are being built in Kenya. So that then tells you that sugar is white gold, only that the government did not have the right managers and the right board of directors to spearhead the revolution around the sugar sector. And I thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just add one thing that Honorable Okello, what he has been saying, and because we were together in the process of advising the process of leasing, the government resorted to leasing because privatization was dissuasive, especially when it comes to advantaging the local communities. If the government went through the privatization, it means the factor of land would have come in. The ownership of land is community linked, in the sense that members of that community ceded land to have the factory established and the nucleus production unit around the factory. And that could not be dealt out because land could not be transferred to private individuals. That's number one. Number two, there are some attendant obligations that needed to be paid. So these obligations have been factored in. The government has offsetted what it is possible and gone on to pay. To give government time to pay off whatever is remaining, the issue of leasing was also taken up. Now, when it comes to advantaging the people, the most important thing is for the sugar growers, are they getting timely payment? That's it. Because a farmer will need money when they have gone to the farm to produce sugar cane for over 2 years, they need to be paid their money. Secondly, are they getting value for their production? Because you can get money, but it is still not enough. It doesn't measure up with the expectations, the alternative use of the land or the opportunity cost of the land. Is it a business? Is it turning out to be a business, as it were? And number 3, are we also contributing then in turning around the economy of sugar so that it helps the people around there and also helps the nation to stop importation, besides, as well as, advantaging the country to save on the foreign exchange and many other issues. So that is one thing I wanted to add in that particular respect. There are 2 other questions which I will attempt, and then I give my friend here a mic in order to move on. There was the issue of cost.
Yes.
We've talked about many issues, and then we have left out cost. Let me say that when we speak for Kenya, and we speak Kenya. We don't speak regional. We are talking about production areas. And I remember I mentioned the banana, and the banana is already part of what we've been discussing here. We may not have mentioned explicitly the issue of bixa, the issue of coconut, the issue of cashew nuts, the issue of sisal, and so on, so that we may articulate the cost. First of all, we are in an international show context. Secondly, we are discussing issues as per the national parliament. And number 3, the representation of the region is not really inferior within the house itself. If we look at the 2 houses, Senate Coast has produced the Speaker of the Senate, and the National Assembly produced the deputy leader majority is from Coast. So Coast is very well taken care of. When it comes to specific commodities, there are policies, there are plans that are being implemented to deal out the various products, the various commodities that are produced in different areas. I know there is a lot of effort within AFA to turn around the seed and the nut industry. When the seed and nut industry is turned around, it means cost benefits a great deal. We've also been discussing sugar. Coast is not left out of sugar because we know there is a large sugar production belt in the coastal region in Kwale. We have visited it as members of the committee, and we've been able to discuss at very close range with the producers of sugar in those areas, and even the processors that agreed on a way forward. So it is not really premised to leave out this particular important region in the discussions, because we haven't discussed everything, and we have contextualized our issues on the higher level, combination. Now, the second issue question that has brought about is whether the government, how is the government protecting the livestock farmers in those areas? How do we support the livestock farmers so that they are not exposed unnecessarily to adversities? The theme of this show is promoting climate smart agriculture and the trade for sustainable growth and development, economic growth. When we talk about climate smart agriculture, we are talking about being specific in what to produce where, and then not disturbing the soil a lot, and then reducing the carbon emission into the atmosphere, and not just carbon or the greenhouse gas emission. So anything that we do around climate smart agriculture has to do with managing our tillage system, not exposing a lot of the soil, then producing optimally to make sure that we don't exceed the pressure on the land, and being able to preserve and protect our natural ecosystems. If we are able to do some of those things, then we are operating under climate smart. The other thing is that agriculture is both a polluter and it is also a precursor. It also helps in containment of climate change. So that's a huge topic, maybe for another day. Now, when it comes to people in ASAL, arid and semi-arid lands, there are a few issues that probably we need to take into context on the efforts of the government to enable those people to move on. I know there are great plans within the government that are geared towards introduction of watering points across the northern regions and even the other regions in the ASAL. So there is the introduction of water or other sinking of boreholes along those areas to provide water. We also have initiatives, and I've seen this as an issue that I don't know the extent to which it has been implemented because it's not in agriculture, of coming up with clusters of production where farmers are able to concentrate their animals in certain areas. Now, whenever there is drought and there is loss of livestock, the government comes in to compensate the farmers, by way of doing what is called we do livestock compensation, in the sense that farmers are paid for the restocking process. They are given some money to be able to buy other animals or given animals so that they may continue the production process. So that's a cautionary measure, as it were. Now, when it comes to the current focus of coming up with field lotting, that's an initiative within the sector that is coming up, that is geared towards production or finishing off of livestock within a specified period of time, so they can access market at different quality ranges of meat. Meat is not just meat, meat is a quality basis. The finishing can be red meat finish, mixed meat finish, or fat meat finish. So that's a topic for another day, but that initiative is there. I know we have funded several, as a committee, we have funded several feedlots, and these feedlots are all over the country and a lot more in the rangelands. I think those are the few issues that probably I wanted to.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Through our speaker, I also want to appreciate for your patience. Our learners were still with us here. I believe you are learning a lot more, this being a mock chamber, also to operating under slogan that is Parliament connecting the people. I would want to have just a small set of questions as you have our winding remarks. Also, the public are demanding that these forums to be conducted in other regions to create awareness. And now this is my very own question. I also wanted to understand some of the things in terms of what happened to the coil, issue. Remember, as the chair of agriculture, there was something to do with coil farming. Is there anything that you're doing in terms of registration? People coming with some of agricultural, initiatives that are not legit. You can add that with your closing remarks, can we?
Okay, thank you very much. I know there was this very emotive approach to sensitize Kenyans to produce quail. And I think quail, we can call it a gimmick, or kind of, it was actually cheating people, because there was, first of all, no market. I remember I was personally involved when one friend of mine came and told me, "You're in agriculture." I said, "Yes, please help me to sell these birds." Then I told him there is an elaborate market for sale of birds. Then he told me, no, I'm talking about quail. I had not even gotten into the context of how quail could be sold. So that one is just like the Bitcoin, is just like any other, diversion that have come into the country. People are misled to get into some systems of production that are not sustainable and that are not fetching as much as probably they may have been. My closing remarks, let me say this is a very important forum where we are able to engage with the public directly as Parliament. And it is important for our public to know that whatever is discussed in Parliament is truthful and factual. It has to deal with the day, because members of Parliament would not like to say anything that would affect their people back at home. They would like to do anything and say anything that will, first of all, support their people back at home, and also support the government to move on. Again, what we do in terms of laws, in terms of policies, associational papers, and in terms of regulations, we normally support the government of the day to implement their manifesto. The Kenya Kwanza manifesto has got several issues that they want to drive. So if you look at the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, out of the growth areas, 5 or so mentioned growth areas, agriculture is key. And agriculture, out of the 9 value chains that have been picked within the BITA, manifesto, 6 of them are in agriculture. We have dairies in agriculture. We have rice is in agriculture. We have a meat sector is in agriculture. We have 6 of them, including tea and so on. So those areas are areas that we are focusing on as a country. So whenever the government, in this case the executive, does propose a legislative change so that it can back up or support or organize themselves better in terms of delivering to the Kenyans, they approach Parliament as a government bill. Again, I needed to say bills can emerge from anybody, from individuals and so on. So government can send bills to us through the leader majority, then the bill will come to the committee and it will be processed procedurally. So we support the government in the sense that we would like the agenda to succeed as a parliament. That's what the parliament is created at Article, I think, 93 of the Constitution. If you look all the way from 93 to 106, 105, you realize that how the government, I mean the parliament is created, the different houses, the functions and the roles and responsibilities, even including the marginalized people, it's all in the Constitution. So we fulfill the Constitution by delivering our mandate as per the Constitution in supporting the government of the day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Honorable David, as you went up.
Okay, thanks a lot. Maybe there's a question I didn't get a bite to answer, and you had asked, and it's important for this forum where we are doing this public engagement, is that the role of Parliament in the management of affairs of this country is very important and very profound. Maybe if you just go to down the memory lane of why actually we have Parliament, in the governance structure of the country, every citizen needs to participate in running the country, in making sure that the policies, in making sure that the laws and everything that touches on them, they are at the center in terms of making sure how they are governed. And that is why Parliament started. And Parliament started by direct representation, whereby everybody who is a citizen of this country could come into this hall and be able to say, to contribute on a motion that is on that is for that day, so that they can be heard, and at the end of the day the majority will have their way. But because of numbers, you can imagine currently we have a population of around 40 or 50 around population, the total population of this country. The ones who are above 18, so maybe above 18 are around 25 million. So those 25 million people, in terms of representation, should have been invited into Parliament to be able to transact their business. And you can imagine a speaker controlling 25 million people. It is impossible. That is why it was thought that maybe it can be split into small constituencies with a parity. In fact, if you look at our constitution, it explains the parity. And I know there are constituencies that are protected because their total population does not actually get a threshold for representation. So they are still protected. I don't know until when. Maybe in the next thing in it, they will disappear from the map or something like that. Something will happen anyway. So, given that it was not possible for all Kenyans to go into a hall and be able to say their views, they are now split into constituencies, and those constituencies are able to elect their member. So when the member of Parliament is in Parliament, he represents the views of his constituency. So if there are 50,000 voters, he is speaking on behalf of 50,000 voters. And in that case, he is representing those 50,000 voters in his constituency. He is doing oversight on behalf of the 50,000 registered voters. He is also doing legislation on behalf of his constituents, and is also doing budget making process on behalf. All the things that are done in Parliament are done on behalf. That is why within the preamble of the Constitution, the first article, it is very important that the people are supreme, and that supremacy can be exercised either directly, and they exercise that directly during voting, and or indirectly through their elected representative. So when your member of Parliament is in Parliament, he is speaking, he is representing, he is legislating, he is oversighting, he is passing the budget and all manner of bills on behalf of the people of that constituency who have attained the age of 40. Thank you.
Honorable Timothy, as you wind up.
Thank you. Now, there is a French philosopher who is normally referred to as the father of separation of powers, who say that for a functional country, there must be separation of powers. There must be judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. And in my opinion, the legislature is the heart of a nation. If it fails, then the country fails. So as Parliament, we have tried our very best to legislate, to oversight, and to represent the people of Kenya at the floor of the House. And what I just want to remind my colleagues is that the best way we can assist the President deliver, the best way we can assist our country is through a strong parliamentary oversight. If Parliament oversights the executive without any fear of contradiction, without any fear, then we shall ensure that the laws we pass in the House are fully implemented and the people shall get value for money for whatever happens at the floor of the House, because it's Parliament that questions the executive, it's Parliament that checks all other arms of government to ensure that there is transparency in any undertaking by a government. So this is a forum, I believe that this outreach forum shall reach all the 47 county governments that we have in this country. It is, we propose that we have dummy assemblies like this at every county headquarters so that our students, our people can appreciate what Parliament does for and on behalf of the country. Thank you.
Jared Okello will have the last word.
I thank you. Through the Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes.
And you, Francis Mutalaki.
Thank you.
Doing a very great job. We want to thank you on behalf of my colleagues for a job well done, the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit, and all the media houses that were streaming it live. I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity. From my observation, the Mombasa ASK show has been a great success. Our president was here yesterday. We are here today. We will be here tomorrow until closure. So far, so very good. Kenya being an agricultural country, it may therefore mandate the government to have a rotational ASK shows across our country throughout the year, not necessarily in the month of either August or September, focusing more on all the 47 counties, giving more input and advice as to what works best where, because you know under agriculture we have crops, we have livestock, and we have fish. So each and every region to focus more on what it can do best for the benefit of our nation. But again, it also exposes people across the divide. There are people here in Mombasa who have never been to Malindi, which is just the next door. There are people in Kisumu who haven't been to Homa Bay, which is next door. So these kinds of exchanges across our nation would help us appreciate our diversity as a nation, help us build better so that we can leverage on all the benefits accruing from matters agriculture. Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
For spearheading.
Thank you so much, Honorable Jared Okello, and fellow members of Parliament for finding time to stay with us. I believe at this juncture I would want to wind up, but also I want to say thank you to the Parliamentary Service Commission led by the chair for organizing this, and also I'd like to thank the clerks for the two parliaments, the Senate and the National Assembly, also for agreeing also to make this a success. And I also want to say thank you for members of Parliament led by the Chair of Agriculture for finding time, and more importantly also our learners who have been here with us all through, and we'll also, just to mention, later we'll also have another debate, so stay tuned. And for those learners who will be coming here to score it out between Nyali and Ganjoni, watch out, these are our future leaders. And thank you so much. I also want to mention that yesterday the Parliament also won an award, which you can see at the back there. So a round of applause for the Parliament. I also want to appreciate the Task Force for Parliamentary Outreach. We thank you and every person that has made this a success. There are men and women who have been walking around, sleeping around here, and making sure that everything is a success. From me, my name is Francis Mtalaki. I would want to say thank you and see you next time. And I hope whatever we've discussed here in terms of outreach are going to be implemented. Many thanks. Asanteni sana.
Sawa.